Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whichever time of day it is, or night, and wherever it is in the world you are, welcome to Forged from Iron, welcome to our Transfer Business tier list series. This will be part 4. I've just recorded part 3. So if you've watched part 3 and you're now watching part 4 and you're wondering why I'm wearing the same shirt, it's because this one I'm recording literally about 15 minutes after the last one finished. It's not because I'm wearing the same shirt 2 days in a row. My washing machine's working just fine. So thanks for coming along. Don't forget to drop a thumbs up on the stream, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure you hit that bell icon to be notified of any new content as and when it arrives on the channel, such as this. Joining me today in the hot seat is long-time contributor and friend of the channel, Steve 50. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm very good, thank you, Gatesy. Enjoying the sunshine for a change, a very rare seen sight in this part of the world.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Well, before we get stuck into the matter at hand, I'd just like to draw everybody's attention, as usual. I'm going to do it at the beginning of the video today. Young Isla Heaton, who needs our help. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you know the story, but if you don't, she's a 6-year-old girl that is fighting for her life against a cancer called neuroblastoma, for which there is no treatment in this country. So the family have got to do an awful lot of fundraising, charity work to get the funds together, not just for the treatment, but for the flights to and from wherever in the world the treatment has to happen, the accommodation once they're there, their living costs, the bills in the UK are still coming in. So this family really is up against it and are in need of any help that they can get. So I don't really care whether you're a West Ham fan, whether you're a football fan. If you can, if you're a family person and this can resonate with you, then please, all I ask you to do, this banner, the information on it will be on the description below YouTube and on Facebook. All I need you to do is to copy and paste it and put it on your social media platforms with a little note as to what the appeal is all about. If you feel that you can contribute by putting a few bob into the tin, then please do. You've got a Just Giving link there. The more, the merrier. And I thank you very much indeed, as always, for your attention. So, Steve, are you ready to rumble, as Michael Buffer says?
Yeah, let's give it a go. I mean,
Let's
the first one's going to be interesting.
Well, just to get it full screen for the people at home, so that there is the tier list. So at the top we've got 4 categories. We've got excellent at the top, we've got very good, we've got bang average and poor. We've got 20 Premier League clubs in alphabetical order, unless my dyslexia has kicked in, along the bottom. We're going to go from A and finish at W. And basically, Steve, all we need you to do is to give your opinions on each club in terms of their transfer business. Now, when I say transfer business, I don't just mean the players that they've signed. I'm including the players that have moved on. And if you want to factor into your thought process things like star players that were thought to possibly be moving on and didn't. So, for example, West Ham's very own Declan Rice. A lot of noises were like, you know, is he going to go to Chelsea? Is he going to go to Manchester United? Is he going to go to Man City? And he ended up staying at London Stadium. If you want to factor that into your thought process, then please do. And then you can put them, whichever team, in whichever category you wish, and so on and so forth. Steve, are you sitting comfortably?
Yes.
Then we'll begin. So,
we'll begin.
Arsenal Football Club. Now, on the Premier League website, their incomings of note were Nuno Tavares, Albert Sambi Lokonga, Ben White, Martin Odegaard, Aaron Ramsdale, and Takehiro Tomiyasu. The outgoings of note are David Luiz, Dinos Mavropanos, Matteo Guendouzi, Joe Willock, Lucas Torreira, Willian, Reece Nelson, Alex Runarsson, Hector Bellerin, and a raft of other players that have left either on loan, on freeze, end of contracts, sold, whatever. Players that, in all honesty, most of whom, players like Mark McGuinness, who went to Cardiff, players like Ben Sheaf, who went to Coventry, players that, quite frankly, I've never heard of. Talk to me, Steve. Do you think that, all things considered, Arsenal had a transfer window that was good, bad, indifferent? Talk to me.
Well, I would actually like a whole new category for Arsenal that's called laughable. I think it's terrible. I think
can I edit in a laughable category without anyone noticing?
probably not.
I'm just going to have to sort of say you got what you got, mate. You're going to have to make a decision.
Well, going in poor, beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Boom.
I could say that I was upset about Arsenal's current woes and their appalling transfers, but then I have been known to lie. I just think it's hilarious. I've had to have all my Arsenal mates for so long look down their nose at me as a West Ham fan. I mean, who was the midfielder they paid 50 million for? Was it a midfielder?
Do you mean Ben White? He's a centre-back.
Centre-back. Okay, they've got Ben White for 50 million. Or if you're really smart, you can go and buy a World Cup winning, Champions League winning centre-back for 30 million. Oh, obviously you go and buy Ben White, don't you? I mean, it's the definite choice. So, no, sorry.
Straight in.
It's caused me so much amusement. I really do want a laughable category. But, no, I think they had the worst transfer window of any club in the Premier League.
Fair enough.
The level of mismanagement and wasting money is pretty close to what it was like under us with the Icelandics, to be honest.
Or even terrible. Pellegrini, maybe.
Pellegrini did spend 100 million on 2 players and we got 20 million back. It's not,
not good. Yeah,
not
what
good.
Can you say?
Anyway.
Let's move on, shall we? Aston Villa.
Yes.
So their incomings of note: Emiliano Buendia from Norwich, Ashley Young from Inter Milan, Leon Bailey from Bayer Leverkusen, Danny Ings from Southampton, Axel Tuanzebe from Manchester United on loan. Outgoings of note: Ahmed El Mohammadi, Neil Taylor, Tom Heaton. Going down the list, there's some bloke that. Jack Grealish. You ever heard of him?
I have.
He went for he didn't go for much, only 100 million to Manchester City, some club that I think they won the Premier League last season. Wesley, Conor Hourihane, the rest are sort of nobodies, and with all due respect, as far as I'm concerned, as a West Ham fan. What do you think of their business? Do you think that the incomings at the cost of losing Jack Grealish was good, or do you think that maybe that's going to come back to haunt them?
I think it's bang average because they lost their best player. How can your window be seen as anything other than average? And I'd include West Ham in this if we'd lost Rice.
Yeah.
How could it be anything other than very average if the player who makes your side tick has gone? And for no other reason. I don't think what they've bought in's bad. Danny Ings, great striker, but injuries with Danny Ings. So that's a bit questionable for me. But no, when your best player goes, it can only be seen as an average window. It's got to be better. You've got to be able to retain your best players and improve your side, and I'm not sure they have. So, bang average for me.
They're in there, bang average. And if anyone can hear my dog barking, I do apologise. She's a French bulldog, and she just barks at things walking past our front room window.
She's very nice as well. She's very cute.
Yes, but she just doesn't like humans, or not the humans outside her house. So there you go. Okay, we move on. We've got Premier League new boys, Brentford. Now, this is the 4th recording of this that I've done to date, and I'm still looking at Brentford's incomings, and with the exception of Christopher Ayer from Celtic, the rest of them I'd never heard of. Players like Yoann Wissa from Lorient, players like Alvaro Fernandez from Huesca on loan, players like Frank Onyeka from Midtjylland. I'll be honest with you, Steve, not players that are familiar to me, but in fairness to Brentford, they have a track record of pulling in players that, an awful lot of, common or garden football fans have never heard of, and end up, polishing them up, and they become cracking players and do a fantastic job for the club. As far as their outgoings are concerned, the players that I've heard of, such as Henrik Dalsgaard, Emilio Marcondes, Patrick Gunnarsson. That's probably about it as far as the players that I have heard of in one way, shape or form is concerned. So obviously this is their first season as a Premier League club. They got off to a flying start against Arsenal, it has to be said. But are they going to have enough firepower? Well, yeah. Are they going to have enough firepower over a 38-game Premier League season to finish 17th or above once the 38th game has finished? That is the question.
It's really difficult, isn't it, to say whether it's been a good transfer window, very good or bang average, because only time will tell on that, how good the players are that they've brought in, and it's impossible to judge on players you just don't know.
Yeah.
It might turn out, even to be excellent if they really get those players going and they get sort of a 13th, 14th finish. So I'm really torn with this one. Yep. It's better than a poor window because they've added to their side, and from their perspective, they've improved it. Mm-hmm. You could argue it's a very good one because they've taken a punt from the position they're in and gone, right, we'll get these players, we'll polish them up and we'll survive. Bang average is, well, no, I think it's slightly better than that because they've bought with intent. They haven't necessarily bought the finished article, but they have bought with intent of turning these players into good, good Premier League players who will keep them up. So I'm going to give them a very good, I think.
Okay. We shall put them in the very good category like that. So we move on. Brighton and Hove Albion, down there on the Sussex coastline. Beautiful place, Brighton. Very picturesque and seaside town. They have done well. Looking at their business, I'll be honest, again, an awful lot of the players I've never heard of, quite honestly. Players like Gary Dicker from Kilmarnock, players like Jeremy Sarmiento from Benfica, Enoch Mwepu from Salzburg. I've heard a few people say, oh yeah, no, he's all right, but I'll be honest, I've never heard of him. Kiel Sherpen from Ajax, Mark Cucurella from Getafe. The one player of note that immediately jumped off the page to me was Abdullah Sima, who came in from Slavia Prague. However, it should be noted that they've immediately loaned him out to Championship Stoke, so he won't be seen this season. Well, certainly not this side of January. I don't know whether there's a recall clause in January or not, but he probably won't be seen as a Premier League player this season. So he can't be an influencer. Their outgoings that I've noted are Jose Izquierdo, Davy Proper, Bernardo, Matt Ryan, Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh. Ben White was obviously the big one that went out of the door. The rest of them, to be honest, and there's a lot of players that have moved on, but an awful lot of them I'm just looking and going, I've never heard of Romaric Yapi, who's gone to Vitesse. I've never heard of Matt Clark, who's gone on loan to West Brom. I've not heard of Kaoru Mituyoma, who's gone to Royal Union St. Gilloise on loan. I'm just, being real honest there. I don't know who you are, mate.
Yeah.
But talk to me, Steve. Brighton and Hove Albion, transfer business. What are you thinking?
Well, this is where they're different from Brentford, because Brighton and Hove Albion are a Premier League club, and you would want to see definite signs of improvement. And again, they may well have improved their squad, but I just don't know. I'd have liked a bit more solid intent from them rather than sort of going fishing. So I'm going to give them bang average. Okay. If they'd been promoted, it would have been very good.
Yep.
For an established Premier League club, bang average.
Fair enough. Okay. Next on the list, Burnley. Now, incomings, again, for the players that I've heard of, Wayne Hennessy's come in from Crystal Palace, the Wales goalkeeper. Aaron Lennon has gone there on a free, but then again, he was there last season. I think it's just a question that his contract expired, and then they latterly extended his contract. Maxwell Cornet and Connor Roberts, the former coming in from Lyon, the latter coming in from Swansea. Against the outgoings, the players that I've heard of, players like Robbie Brady, players like Ben Gibson, players like Bailey Peacock Farrell. The rest, I'll be honest, I've never heard of Mace Goodridge. I've never heard of Ryan Cooney, who's gone to Morecambe. I've never heard of Jimmy Dunn, who's gone to QPR, and so on and so forth. So talk to me, your thoughts.
Ooh. Difficult. Bang average, I think, because again, you know, they had all this supposed new investment. Going to take them to the next level. Hasn't happened, has it?
Yeah.
And I would have wanted more from them. So there you go. Bang average for me.
There you go. They join Aston Villa and Brighton and Hove Albion in the bang average category. So moving on, we've got the current European champions, Chelsea. Now, interesting this, because European champions, a team with aspirations of possibly winning the Premier League, and they've made 3 signings. One of whom is a goalkeeper that used to be on loan at my local football club, Dartford. Marcus Bettinelli, who's gone there on a free from their near neighbours, Fulham. The other 2 players are a little bit more notable. Saul Niguez, who went there on deadline day on a loan deal from Atletico Madrid, and their former striker has come back to Stamford Bridge, Romelu Lukaku from Inter Milan, for I think it was 97.5 million, something like that. So looking at the outgoings, we've got players like Willy Caballero. We've got a player that we actually picked up, Pierre Ekwa Alimbi. You've got Fikayo Tomori. You've got Billy Gilmore. You've got Victor Moses, Olivier Giroud, Mark Guehi, Conor Gallagher, Mishi Batshuayi, Tammy Abraham, Davide Zappacosta, Emerson Palmieri, Baba Rahman, Kurt Zuma, who's obviously come to West Ham, Tamue Bakayoko, Danny Drinkwater, Ethan Ampadu. I mean, the list is ridiculous. The amount of players, an awful lot have gone out on loan. An awful lot of them are probably players that will never pull on a shirt for Chelsea in a first team game in their entire lives. But there's an awful lot of players that have gone out the door and only 3 that have walked in. So the current European champions, Steve, where do you think they sit on the tier list?
Very good. Anybody you can get Lukaku up front's got to have a very good transfer window. We wouldn't have turned our noses up at Lukaku, would we?
Oh God, no.
Nor would so.
I don't think we would have been able to afford him at nearly 100 million, though, Steve, in fairness.
No. Well, we might have been able to buy him on instalments, so we could have had a sort of a leg and an arm this transfer window and slowly sort of acquire the rest.
Offer him a 10% discount at Ann Summers, something like that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the options are incredible, aren't they? But
yeah,
no, I mean, it's got to be very good. You get somebody of that quality up front. They've cut their wage bill. The only place they seem to have made a clanger is they didn't get a replacement in for Zuma.
Yes.
But that was all lined up, and then, sorry, he's not going to come.
I think they wanted more money. I think the way because wasn't it, I'm trying to think, the player they were trying to get in was it Sevilla?
Yeah.
And I think they looked at Zuma's gone for what, sort of like some reports say 25 million.
Yeah.
Some reports say it was sort of nearer 30. And I think that the team that was the parent club of the player they were trying to get in as Zuma's replacement has looked and gone, well, if Zuma's worth that, then our player's worth this, which is, and the story I've heard is that the Chelsea exec, Marina Granovskaya, just basically said, nah, not having that. And she's just gone, no, we ain't doing business. So.
Yes, fair enough. And good on her, actually. Because, I mean, whichever way you look at it, it's extortion, isn't it? It's, you've got a few quid in the bank here. It's like Villa selling Grealish for 100 million. Everybody knows they've got 100 million. All the prices go up. So, yeah, that's even more reason to put it in the very good category then if they're still firm on that. Okay, they're short a really good defender. Not that I care much because we've got him. But yeah, very good from Chelsea. You sign one player like that, you can't argue with it, really.
Fair enough. Cool. Argue with it, I shall not. Okay, Crystal Palace. Well, the high-flying Eagles. Well, don't know about that. That's probably a bit over the top, Gatesy. Come on. Okay, so let's just take things into consideration. So back end of last season, Roy Hodgson announced that he was stepping down. I believe he's retired. Wish him a long and happy retirement, Roy.
Yeah, and 70s,
many good wishes to you. He was replaced by Patrick Vieira at the helm, obviously coming in, former Premier League winner, FA Cup winner, World Cup winner, fantastic player back in the day. However, this is his first gig as a Premier League manager. Now, he's obviously done a bit of business. He's brought in players like Michael Olise from Reading. And I'll say that when we did You Are the Manager with Russ Budden from, as at the time, it was My Hammers 11. It's now latterly the West Ham Network. This was a player that he was championing, and he was the only one when we did this series. He was the only one that picked this player up, and he's gone to Crystal Palace. I think he's injured now, unfortunately, but there you go. Mark Guehi's come in at centre back from Chelsea. Joachim Anderson, who was on loan at Fulham last season, has come in from Lyon. Conor Gallagher has gone there on loan from Chelsea. Nathaniel Klein, he was actually there last season. I think the contract ended and that they've just basically re-signed him once his contract was up, because he's down here on the Premier League website as a free. Will Hughes from Watford and Odson Edouard from Celtic, who there was tentative links between he and our beloved West Ham. Looking at the outgoings, players of note: Wayne Hennessy, Andros Townsend, Mamadou Sakho, Patrick Van Arnholt, Gary Cahill, James McCarthy, Scott Dan, and the rest are sort of, I don't know who players like Sam Woods were, or Brandon Perrick, who's gone to Vielier Bold Club. I don't know. I ain't got a clue. What are you thinking, Steve?
Again, it's difficult. I mean, I tend to go on, has that side improved because of their transfers? And I don't know. I don't know enough of these players to say, oh, yeah, that's going to make a big impact.
How about the fact that they've managed to keep Wilfried Zaha? Is that a factor in, or should it be a factor in your decision?
I don't think Wilfried Zaha wants to be there.
No.
I think the reason Wilfried Zaha is still there is because nobody wanted him.
Or no one wanted him for the money that Palace were prepared to let him go for, at least.
And I mean, you and I, we both saw him play against the Hammers a couple of weeks back, didn't we? Or about a week ago.
Didn't think he was special.
No, he was completely disinterested. So keeping Zaha, possibly no, because I don't think with the attitude he's got, he's going to make that much of a difference. If it was, any number of players, you go, yeah, they've got them there, they're good, they're going to play with the right attitude. I just think Zaha's marking time, though I don't honestly think Zaha will get the big move he wants. So I'm going to give him bang average, because I don't know whether it's better than it was, really. Okay.
Bang average. Yeah, I think, when you've got a manager that was there for, I think he was there for about 4 or 5 years, Roy Hodgson.
Yeah.
If my maths is correct, I'm fairly sure it was around about 4 years, which, I'm not being funny, if you're a Premier League manager these days and you've survived for 4 years, then you're doing something right, I guess. But obviously Roy, he plays a certain brand of football, if you will. And I rather suspect that Patrick Vieira will play a slightly different brand of football. And that's probably why seems to be a little bit of a revolving door that's going on at Selhurst Park, that there's players that have been shipped off, players that have been brought in because he's just looked at the players that Roy had to pick from that had a certain skill set, and he's probably just looked at it and gone, fundamentally, you can't do the job that I believe is how I want to play football. So you've got to go, and I've got to get players in that can. I
thought letting Andros Townsend go was a bit odd. I've always thought he's quite a decent player, but, so be it. I don't think that goes in their favour when I consider what sort of transfer window they had, because I wouldn't be averse to seeing Townsend at West Ham, for instance. Yeah. I think he's decent. But there you go.
Speaking of Andros Townsend, we actually come to the club that he's gone to, Everton. Now, Everton Football Club, 12 months or so ago, welcomed Carlo Ancelotti into their ranks. Obviously, a manager that's, been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt. I don't think that there's a trophy that means an awful lot that this guy hasn't got on his CV. Absolutely top class manager, as Harry Redknapp would say. He obviously came in, had a lot of money that Farhad Moshiri gave him to spend on players as he saw fit. Brought in players on big money, like principally James Rodriguez. James. He's come through the door. 12 months later, it's Real Madrid, who's Ancelotti's former employers, have waved the checkbook in his face. He's sort of had it on his toes. And who comes through the door? Well, former Liverpool Champions League manager Rafa Benitez, who once upon a time, it has to be said about Everton Football Club that they were a small club. And now he's their manager. So, looking at the incomings, as I say, Andros Townsend's one of them, Asmir Begovic, Demari Gray, Salomon Rondon, and Andy Lonergan, who's a reserve goalkeeper, essentially, coming in from West Brom. The outgoings of note were Theo Walcott, Josh King, Yannick Bolasie, Mohamed Bezic. Scrolling down because there's no one there of note until I get to Bernard, Moise Keane, and that, other than a load of nobody players, like, with all due respect to you, mate, Nathan Broadhead, who's gone on loan to Sunderland, and Nathaniel Markello, who's gone to PSV Eindhoven. I'm sorry, the rest of them I'm not too sure about. Okay, Steve, Everton, talk to me.
Again, Benitez is rebuilding the squad into his own image, isn't he? If you give Benitez and Ancelotti 100 million, they're going to spend it differently. Who do I think is the better manager for a club like Everton? I think Benitez is.
Okay.
It's like us with Pellegrini. I always thought Moyes was a better manager, a better fit for our club than Pellegrini was. And I think Benitez is a better fit for Everton.
Do you think that the fact, though, that he's a former... It's probably not so much that. The fact that he's a former Champions League winning manager for Liverpool, does that count against him? Maybe, maybe not. But the fact that he was on record as once upon a time saying that Everton Football Club are a small club, how do you think that's going to go against Rafa Benitez? Because I think that the Everton fans, a lot of them will hold that against him, and that when there's a phase of matches, which I think is inevitable to happen, where Everton go on an iffy run, I think the fans might be a little bit up in arms, shall we say.
Well, I mean, that you've got it in one there. If he wins games and they do well and they come top 8, he'll probably get a pass. If they don't come in the top 10 and have a ropey season, he won't. And it's all going to depend. I mean, if Benitez just in a mythical world where unicorns and fairies exist, if Benitez,
you mean they don't?
No, afraid not, mate. Well, unicorns don't.
Well, hang on. What about Father Christmas and the Tooth Fairy?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, of course they do, right. And the Easter Bunny.
Oh, that's all right then. That's fine.
Yeah, but in that mythical world, if Benitez in the next 2 years won the Champions League with Everton, Do you think any Everton fan would care? If I was an Everton fan, I wouldn't.
What have you put in your tea, Steve? Everton win the Champions League in the next 2 years?
That's why I said in a mythical world, because there is no way.
Oh, mate, that's a super mythical world, honestly.
Yeah, but if that happened, not one single Everton fan would care that he's managed Liverpool.
True.
My brother-in-law, who is a manic Everton's fan, would be over the moon.
Of course.
And I'd never stop getting grief for it.
Oh, God.
It would be just unbearable. But, and here's the but, I think Everton and West Ham are fairly comparable clubs.
Yep.
Actually, I know this guy's chucking a huge amount of money at them. But in terms of size, reasonably comparable. I think if Everton fans are realistic and say, right, we come top 8 this year, that's going to have to do as a start. And I think Benitez will build. What do I think of because it's Benitez, I'm going to put it in the very good, because he knows what he's doing and he's bought players for purpose. You know, so I'm going to give him a very good. And that
it has to be said.
Controversial.
No. Listen, it's your opinion and you're entitled to it, mate. What I think and anybody else watching this thinks is down to them. But you know, I mean, Damari Gray. I mean, I think he's gone there for less than £2 million, and I got to be honest. When I saw him play for Leicester, I'm not going to say that I thought he was the second coming of Thierry Henry. No. But I thought he was a decent player, and I think he's a player that in Premier League terms is worth more than a sort of like a south of £2 million price tag, in my opinion.
You think he's worth more than Dawson?
Well, obviously, positionally, they're different players, and forward players tend to go for more money than defensive players tend to as a rule. But yeah, I do.
Yeah, but in Gonzo's financial world, that's a fifth of a Hugel, isn't it? He got him, which is a good value for money. Yes, a fifth of a Hugel. I'd never thought of it like that, but now you've brought it up. Yes, makes it a good transfer. That makes it a good transfer, in my opinion. So, okay, so Everton Football Club have gone in the very good category. We move on. Leeds United. There they are in Yorkshire. Now, managed by the man that, you know, everybody says was an inspiration, and managers like Pep, managers like Poch. The Sullivan decided not to employ because they didn't think his English was good. Yeah, Marcelo Bielsa, And to be fair, his English probably still isn't very good, because every time you see the geezer, he's got an interpreter there, but there you go. Incomings of note, Jack Harrison, but he was there on loan last season. He's made his move from Manchester City complete. Junior Firpo from Barcelona, who was sort of semi-linked with us, if you want to go down that route, and Daniel James from Manchester United. There are other players there, players that are not really familiar to me, like Christopher Klassen from Vålerenga, Amari Miller from Birmingham, and Leo Hjelde from Celtic. I'm not going to lie, not players that I'm familiar with. The outgoings, an awful lot of these. I'm going down the list here, Steve, and until I get to Ezcan Alioski, I'm not too sure of all the players that are above him. We go down a little bit. I've got Pablo Hernandez, I've got Ian Poveda, and I've got Helder Costa as the only names that I'm looking at and going, I've heard of them. So Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United, the incomings, outgoings at Elland Road. Your thoughts on that, please? It's really difficult when I don't know the players particularly well at all. I'd have to go for bang average, because it doesn't seem to be an awful. Seems to be movement, but you don't know what the quality is going to be. So bang average for me. Okay, they occupy the bang average tier. Next to Crystal Palace right there. Okay, Leicester City. Now, interesting this. They only made 5 signings, but I got to say that they seem to have gone for quality over quantity, in my opinion. Or at least potential quality. Time will tell.
Patson Daka from RB Salzburg, Boubakary
Yep.
Samare from Lille, Ryan Bertrand, who was down here as unattached, but he was previously at Southampton, Yannick Vestergaard from Southampton, who obviously came in as a result of the horrific injury to Wesley Fofana, and Ademola Lookman on loan from RB Leipzig, who was on loan at Fulham last season. Obviously took a cracking penalty at London Stadium in that match
Well,
where he...
yeah.
Yeah, I thought
Penalty
it was
of
a
the
brilliant
season.
penalty from my point of view. I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved
So
it.
did I.
He just chipped it straight down into Fab's hands. Moving on. Christian Fuchs has been moved on. He's been moved to a club called Charlotte. That's interesting. Don't ask me. Wes Morgan's retired. They're obviously their Premier League winning captain. And I then go down the list and I hit Dennis Pratt, who's gone on loan to Torino. The rest of them, to be brutally honest, I've never heard of you, George Hurst, who's gone on loan to Portsmouth. I've never heard of you, Rashid Ghezal, who's gone to Besiktas. With all due respect, guys, and I'm sure you've never heard of me, but I've never heard of you either. So, you know, that kind of makes us even. Leicester City, your thoughts on their overall business, Steve?
I think it was excellent. Yeah, they've brought in some real quality there. They're going to be a much improved side. Mind you, they still won't beat the Hammers, but that's neither here nor there. We're a bit of a bogey team for them. It is quite amusing. But, no, excellent. They've really brought in some quality and there's some forward planning. I mean, Daka's come in for when Vardy can't do it anymore.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
there is succession planning and they've done that really well. And I like what they've done, and I like Leicester as a club. And I like the fact that Leicester insist on losing to us on a regular basis. That's a real it's a real plus in my box. But no, excellent transfer window for Leicester. They know what they're doing. They've got a clear vision. They're going for it. Yeah, good luck to them. And I hope they break into the top 4 this year. I really do.
Okay, they're in. They're in. Okay, so we move on. Next on the list. Now, 2 seasons ago, Liverpool won the Premier League. The season before that, they won the Champions League. The season before that, they were runners-up in the Champions League final. Now, we move forward to the year 2021, and in the transfer window, who have they brought in? Well, they've brought in Ibrahima Konate from Leipzig.
Yes.
And that's it. That's all they've done. Not even a loan signing, not even a free, nothing. That is it. That's their one and only signing. We look down the list of outgoings, and there's quite a lot, but most of them you've never heard of. Players like Liam Coyle, players like Abdi Sharif, players like Jack Walls. Yep, sorry guys, never heard of you. I'm sure you're lovely. I'm sure you're very nice people, and you do an awful lot of work for charity meat, but I don't know who you are. Gigi Wijnaldum, however, yes, I've heard of you, and you went on loan to PSG on a free. We go down the list. We've got Marco Gruyech, I've heard of you. Bit part player at Anfield, it has to be said, but he's gone to Porto. Harry Wilson's gone to Fulham, again, bit part player. Ben Davies, bit part player, gone on loan to Sheffield United. Ben Woodburn, bit part player, loan to Heart of Midlothian. Xherdan Shaqiri, a semi-bit part player, sort of first teamer, but wasn't really a first team pick regularly. He's gone to Lyon, and the rest of them, to be brutally honest with you, mate, I ain't got a clue. Liam Miller, who's gone to Basel, but, you know, I don't know who they are.
Again, I think this transfer window is actually... It rivals Arsenal's for the worst in the league. If they've got intent of winning the Premier League, that's not it, is it? And I don't think they will win it, actually. I think Chelsea are going to get it, but...
Same. Yeah, I've said that on a couple of streams up to this point. I think Chelsea are my favourites. Don't ask me why. I just think that... I think the signing of Lukaku is going to be the difference this season. I think if they'd have had Lukaku this season, I don't know whether they'd have won the Premier League last season, but I tell you what, they'd have been an awful lot closer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually think, and this is going to be controversial, I think Tuchel's got a better tactical nous than Guardiola.
Or I don't think that's controversial. I happen to agree.
And I think Tuchel will ultimately outthink Guardiola and win the league. That's what I think. I mean, I know there's a load of hype about Pep, and don't misunderstand me. He's a brilliant manager.
Oh, massively. You don't have his CV.
No.
I mean, you could argue the toss: is Pep the best manager? Is Mourinho the best manager? How in the list of all-time managers, Ferguson,
I mean,
Ancelotti, but they're guys that are in the conversation.
Yeah, I think the thing is, you won't. Any manager who is considered the best in the world is only there for a period of time until somebody else comes along and is better than them.
Yeah.
And I think Tuchel's got the edge on him. So going back to the magnificent Liverpool, desperately laughable would be a nice category, but they go into the poor.
They're in there. The red half of Merseyside, not so good. The blue side of Merseyside is a couple of rungs up on the ladder. So there you go. I don't think they'll necessarily be that way in the Premier League, but time will tell. Next, we come to Manchester City, Steve. So now, and I've mentioned this on a couple of the previous streams. When you look at the Premier League trophy and you look at the three last teams that have had their names etched on it, and I know obviously Manchester City have won it a couple of years in a row, so I'm looking at the last different team names that you see on the Premier League trophy, and they are Manchester City, Liverpool and Chelsea. Between the three of them, they've signed 6 players. As I say, we've done Chelsea, they signed 3. Liverpool we've just done, they've signed 1, and Manchester City have signed 2. One of whom is basically going in as their second/third choice goalkeeper, Scott Carson, on a free from Derby County, and obviously Jack Grealish, who went there in a British transfer record from Aston Villa. Now that against their outgoings, Sergio Aguero, remember him? 2012, last minute of the season, Balotelli, Aguero.
Yeah. And QPR were ahead for quite a bit in that game, weren't they? And QPR had to win to stay up, and they still stayed up because of other results, even though they lost 3-2.
Really
Remember
strange.
It very well. Yeah.
Aguero's gone to Barcelona on a free alongside Eric Garcia. We go down the list. To be honest, an awful lot of these players I've never heard of. We did the recording last night with Cahill. He mentioned Gavin Bazunu, who's gone on loan to Portsmouth. He tells me he's actually the Republic of Ireland's #1 goalkeeper at the minute, ahead of Darren Randolph.
Right.
I wasn't aware of this. I do apologise. Jack Harrison, obviously, he completed his permanent move to Leeds after being there last season on loan. Lucas Nemecha, yes, I've heard the name. Haven't seen him play that much. He's gone to Wolfsburg. We go down the list. Patrick Roberts, I've heard of him. He's gone on loan to Troyes in France. Rest of them, to be honest, players I've never heard of. Steve, the Premier League champions, Manchester City, your thoughts on them?
Well, this a lot of people will disagree with, but then, hey, that's life. I know everybody raves about Grealish. I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced by Grealish at all.
What's your reservations?
I think he's a bit lightweight. I think he dives too easily.
Oh, yes.
I think he's very much a luxury player.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd never fit in the Moyes side because Moyes wouldn't have him. He sort of wanders around as if, I'm Jack Grealish kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced. I think he's a damn good player, but I think he's a damn good player if he's allowed to play in the way he wants.
Yeah.
So although they spent 100 million for Grealish, I think they'd have been better off buying Harry Kane, going that bit extra. So I'm going to put him in bang average.
Ooh. Interesting.
And that's purely and simply because I am not convinced by Grealish at all. I know he's everybody's wonder boy at the moment, but not sure.
Isn't it your opinion, Steve?
Yeah, I think time will tell.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely fair. Okay, so we move on, and it's their cross-city neighbours, Manchester United. Now,
Oh,
they only brought in 4 players,
yeah.
so not fantastically much strengthening, I guess, in terms of numbers that went on. But then you look at the players in question. Now, Tom
Yeah.
Heaton, now he was at Manchester United previously, never really made it there, and he had to move on to pastures new and got in a few England squads and, Burnley #1 for a period of time. He went to Aston Villa. He started off as their #1, got an injury, dislocated shoulder, if I remember rightly, and couldn't really re-establish himself as their #1. He's come back to Man United, but he's basically come as their #3/#4 goalkeeper. But then you look at the other 3 names that have walked through the door, and we got to say, wow, Jadon Sancho from Borussia Dortmund, Rafael Varane from Real Madrid, and in my opinion, the greatest player of his generation, and yes, I do put him ahead of Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, I put him ahead of Messi.
Yeah, it's a close run thing. I mean, my goodness, I got to say, I've been very fortunate that I'm alive to watch 2 absolutely fantastic players like Ronaldo and Messi plying their trade, week in, week out. But if I had to pick one, in my opinion, I'd go Ronaldo. But there's just as many people that would go for Messi. So, they're both brilliant players. And I think they're fantastic. Looking at their outgoings. Sorry?
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember Pele playing.
Ooh, I never saw Pele, but I saw Maradona, and he was unbelievable.
Pele play. Towards the end of his career, I saw Pele. I wasn't even 10 at the time, and my dad sat me down and said, "Watch him, he's brilliant." And I did, and it didn't mean a lot to me at the time. But looking back, to actually say, I've seen Pele play, albeit on telly, a bit like Bobby Moore. I've only ever seen him play for Fulham, but I've still seen him play. And and Maradona was superb, but he wasn't as good as Pele. Nowhere near.
Really? Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Maradona was superb. Pele, I tell you what, if I had to put Pele up against both Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, Pele would win it hands down.
Wow.
He really was extraordinary. And that shows you how fantastic Bobby Moore's defensive display against him in the 70s World Cup was.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any other defender, and people go, "Oh, Beckenbauer was great," or this. No other defender could have got near him. Yeah, it really was a battle of 2 world-class titans. That we lost the match 1-0, but it's worth watching.
Oh God, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it's something else.
And Banksy's save.
Yeah, absolute masterclass from Bobby Moore, and the greatest save that I've ever seen.
Yeah, he should have saved it. But anyway, where do I put United?
Well, I tell you, I was just going to go on as that their outgoings just for a little bit of balance. So, of the names that you'd recognise, we've got Sergio Romero, we've got Tahith Chong, we've got Axel Tuanzebe, we've got Andreas Pereira, James Garner, Brandon Williams, and the big one being Daniel James. What do you think, Steve?
Excellent. If you can bring Ronaldo in, let's face it, it's an excellent window, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry.
I'd take him.
Yeah. Sorry, it wasn't quite excellent because we didn't get Sam Bloggs as well. No, you've just brought in the best player of the world. Okay, he's aging, but he's still incredibly fit.
He'll still get 20 Premier League goals. I'm fairly confident of that.
Easily. And the other thing, why it was a smart move to bring in Ronaldo, and this isn't footballing reasons at all, the money they're going to make, the merchandising money they will make, also makes it an excellent transfer. He's known worldwide. People
probably pays for itself, doesn't it, with the shirt sales?
Yeah, they're paying him $500,000 a week. I bet you they make more than that out of him. I mean, superb piece of business, Ronaldo. And let's face it, the other signings weren't that shabby either, were they? If we'd had that transfer window, I'd have been delighted. But having said that, somebody would have said, Ronaldo's too old and we're overpaying him. Typical West Ham supporter view on it. But,
Do you think that their weakness, if there's a weakness in Manchester United, obviously I think that it's fair to say that Sancho and Ronaldo strengthen up their offence. Varane strengthens their defence. Do you think, though, that the engine room of any Premier League football team, the midfield, is maybe not up to scratch and needed a bit more overhauling?
I think it did, but if you look at how clubs have signed and how many players clubs have signed, they've all signed some, not all they wanted. And that was COVID, because that's hit everybody.
Yes.
The fact that West Ham spent as much as we did astonished me. And the fact that we spent it as well as we did astonished me. But I just think United will dip in again and strengthen that area of the pitch, just not this time. It will happen, and give it another 2 seasons, and I think United could be the team to beat. Though whether I think Solskjaer's the manager to get them to that level, I don't know. I have my doubts on that.
Okay.
But no, excellent transfer window. Ronaldo, how can it be anything less?
Fair enough, no problem. Moving on apace, we've got Newcastle United. So looking at the players that they've brought in, now I'll be honest, they've brought 5 players in. The only one that really I can say hand on heart I'd heard of was Joe Willock from Arsenal. Now, when we did the recording last night with Santiago Munoz, his name was mentioned, and Cahill seemed to think that this was a player that was he was quite keen on. I've never heard of him, I'll be brutally honest.
No.
The rest of the players, never heard of Charlie Wiggett coming from Chelsea, never heard of Remy Savage coming from Liverpool, and I've never heard of Cameron Ferguson from Tranmere Rovers. But they're there. Outgoings, the players of note. I'm scrolling down the list and there's a raft of names that have been released and I've never heard of them until I get to Florian Lejeune, who's gone to Alaves, and Matty Longstaff, who's gone on loan to Aberdeen in the Scottish Premier League. Scottish Premiership, excuse me, not the Premier League, Scottish Premiership. Newcastle United, Steve, your thoughts on their transfer business?
Poor, actually.
Okay.
And it's not about the players, it's about the size of the club, about what they should be able to do and what they are doing. And until Mike Ashley sells up and we actually get some people who are prepared to back the manager, then it's poor. And they even issued a statement, didn't they? Because the fans were really annoyed with their transfer spending, and they issued a statement defending it, saying Newcastle is run in a sustainable way. Well, I'm sorry, Newcastle should be able to do better than that, in my opinion. Great club, tons of history. I mean, have you ever been to Newcastle? I'm sure
do you know what? I never have, and it's one of the things that I'm kind of regretting in some respects. That obviously Jazz, who's regularly on the channel with us, and he had a ticket that was going for the Newcastle game, the opening game of the season, and I was so disappointed in some ways. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was I was on a family holiday in Cornwall and it was great. I've got time with my family and I'm in a place.
Yeah.
And I apologise for my dog barking, but it was just timing. I'd have loved to have been able to go to Newcastle, the city, and St James's Park, the stadium, and be there. Not just sort of like the fact that I missed out on a win, which was the cherry on the icing on the cake, but just to have been there and gone to a ground that I look at and think, from the outside looking in, I think is a cathedral of Premier League football. Newcastle, for me, they're a sleeping giant. They really are. They're a city that only has one club within it, as opposed to London that has many. And I sit there and think, do you know what? If someone actually grabbed a hold of this club and had the finances behind it, and the supporter base could sort of really be galvanised, and oh my goodness, there's so much potential there, so much. But They're treading water.
I've never been to a match there, but I've spent a considerable amount of time in the city. When I was at university, I had a girlfriend that hailed from that end of the world, and it is a magnificent city. You come in by train, you come in over the Tyne, the bridge is all lit up at night, and you go there, and actually the Geordies are really, my experience is the Geordies are really nice people, but they are football mad.
It's like a religion, isn't it?
Yeah, and I really feel for Newcastle fans, actually, because their club should be so much better than it is. It's actually being. If somebody said to me, "Would you swap Golden Sullivan for Mike Ashley?" I'd say no, in a heartbeat.
Do you know what? I think I'm not. I'm going to get this out there. Am I a Golden Sullivan fan? No. Do I think that their race is run at West Ham? In all honesty, yes.
Yeah.
But I agree with that statement. I think that if it was a choice between Golden Sullivan and Mike Ashley, I'd be like, yeah, you stay where you are, Golden Sullivan, and Mike Ashley, you can clear off down the road.
I've said this a number of times in the past about Golden Sullivan. I mean, I'm pretty much board neutral because, you know, I know lots of people are bored out at any cost, but you could get a lot worse than Golden Sullivan. A lot worse. And,
well, look at who replaced them at Birmingham.
Well, precisely. And let's be fair. As you've said in the past, and I completely agree, they're over-ambitious. They've tried to achieve things that were beyond their reach. Now, I'm not going to knock them for trying to achieve it. But also, the fact that they're not competent doesn't make them bad people. It just means they're not competent. And there's a big difference. People think because they make mistakes running West Ham, they're bad people. I don't buy into that. I just don't.
Well, it's a bit like if you plonked me into the West Ham midfield in the next Premier League game. I'm a West Ham fan. I love the club, but I couldn't do the job. I'd do my best, but, you know, my best would clearly be inadequate. I mean, like I say, I have heard the accusation levelled at Golden Sullivan that they're, you know, this lack of ambition. And I've countered with, I don't believe it's a lack of ambition. If I'm being completely honest, I think what they're guilty of is I think they're guilty of being over-ambitious, but lacking the means to be able to deliver on those ambitions.
Yeah,
if you look at their 10-point pledge when they first walked through the door, and you can say, well, which, aside from taking the club to London Stadium, have they actually delivered on? The rest of it is either questionable or they fundamentally failed. Now, I think if you look at that list, it was very, very ambitious, but they've just, for whatever reason, a whole multitude of things, they've not delivered on it. And I don't think it's a lack of ambition. I think that they're what they're guilty of, in my opinion, is they're guilty of over-promising and under-delivering. What they should have done is the complete reverse and under-promised and over-delivered. Just my opinion.
I think as West Ham fans, we often still want to beat them over the head with that 10-point plan, and we've got to let it go and we've got to move forward. We are where we are. It is what it is. And for the first time in, well, actually, I think possibly for the first time in 50 years of supporting West Ham, we haven't just had a one-off good season, but we're on an upward trajectory. Now, how high that upward trajectory goes, I don't know. But this is the best West Ham team I've seen since I watched Brooklyn, Bonds and Devonshire in the same side.
Wow.
You know, they are. I mean, that's why I love Soufal. He reminds me of watching Billy Bonds play. Same effort, same endeavour, same passion. I look at Ben Rama. He reminds me of the silky touch of Brooking. You know, and there's a lot to really enjoy at the moment. So for me, I'm not going to beat them over the head with the 10-point plan. I'm going to enjoy where we are now.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Fair enough.
Sorry, we've digressed, haven't we?
We have. We've gone off on a Gatesy tangent. My word.
Well, we always do this, bud.
We always do. We always do.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare when you and I get together on the street.
This much
we
is
just start
true.
rambling on.
Maybe we should do it more regularly.
We're back in the room. Newcastle,
sorry, guys. Sorry, everyone.
has gone in. Don't apologise. Newcastle have gone into port. We're moving on. Premier League returnees, Norwich City. So, looking on the Premier League website for the players of note, players that you may have heard of, very likely. Angus Gunn, the son of former Norwich City and Scotland goalkeeper Brian Gunn. He was formerly at Norwich. He was formerly at Manchester City. He was formerly at Southampton, which is where Norwich have got him from. Ben Gibson's gone there from Burnley. Billy Gilmore's gone there on loan from Chelsea. Josh Sargent from Werder Bremen. Brandon Williams on loan from Manchester United. And Ozan Kabak, who was on loan at Liverpool at the back end of last season, has gone to Norwich City on loan from Schalke in the Bundesliga. So, looking at their outgoings, you've got Alex Tettey, Mario Varanic, Emiliano Buendia is the big one, who obviously went to Aston Villa. Orjan Nyland has been released. Marco Stiepermann has been released. Josip Drmic has gone to Rijeka on loan. We go down the list, and there's a fella here you may remember by the name of Jordan Hugill.
He's on loan, isn't he?
He is. He's gone on loan to West Brom, would you believe?
Amazing.
Your thoughts on the comings and goings at Carrow Road, Steve?
Bang average, because I don't think they've done enough to keep them in the Premier League.
You think they're going straight back down the gurgler?
I think they're going straight back down again. I've watched them play, and even with those signings, I don't think they've got enough to stay in the Premier League.
Fair enough.
So bang average. They'd have been better off bringing 2 or 3 really quality players in and giving themselves a chance. I don't think this will do it.
You think they're going straight back down? Fair enough. No problem at all. It's your opinion that counts in this one. Okay, so we move on to Southampton. They're on the Hampshire coast. They're in sunny Southampton. So let's have a look at their incomings. Theo Walcott, who was actually on loan there the latter part of last season from Everton, he's made that move permanent. And I look down the list, and we've got Adam Armstrong, who we were linked with on and off, who's gone there from Blackburn. The rest of the players, I'll be brutally honest, I'd never heard of them until they'd gone there. They've signed a trio of Chelsea players such as Armando Broja and Tino Livramento and Daniel Simeo. Yeah, I'd never heard of them. It's not like they'd signed Tammy Abraham and Billy Gilmore, or, you know what I mean? It's like, who are they? Romain Perrault from Brest. No, never heard of you. Thierry Small from Everton. Nope. Moving on to their outgoings, we got Ryan Bertrand, who went to Leicester on a freebie. Going further down the list, there's a raft of players that you would have never heard of, and neither have I. Wesley Hoot has gone to Anderlecht. Angus Gunn, we mentioned earlier, has gone to Norwich. Mario Lemina has gone to Nice. Danny Ings to Aston Villa, Yannick Vestergaard to Leicester, and Michael Obafemi to Swansea. So the comings and goings of Ralph Hasenhüttl's men. What do you think?
I'm going to put that in poor, because I think they'll get relegated off the back of that.
Wow.
I think they'll go down. I think they've lost some decent players and haven't really replaced them particularly well. I don't think Alan Armstrong will be able to cope tremendously well in that setup. I stand to be proved wrong, but no, I think Southampton are going to go this year.
Wow.
So a poor transfer window, because I think they're weaker than they were before it started.
Don't go to Southampton anytime soon, Steve. Once I've uploaded this to the channel, you might want to avoid Southampton for a little while. They might not like you for that, but I think actually you might be right. Well,
that reminds me of Spike Milligan. You know the show Room 101. He put Portsmouth in Room 101, and he said, and they said why, and they said, well, because when I went there, they didn't like me. And the actual guy who was ever taking it said, well, you did say it was the back of beyond and nobody should ever visit Portsmouth before you went there, Spike. What did you expect?
Be careful what you say. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, Southampton fans.
Did you ever hear what he wanted put on his headstone?
Yeah, I told you I wasn't well.
That's the one.
And it was Tom Morris, the Sir Tom Morris, who did the walks during COVID and raised millions for the SAS.
Was it Morris? I thought.
Oh, there might not have been Morris. It was Sir Tom, whoever it was.
Yeah, it was Sir Tom. I'm trying to remember what his surname was. I do apologise, but his surname has popped right out of my head. I don't think it was Morris.
But what he had put on his gravestone was, I told you I was old.
Brilliant.
And I really like that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Saying about old comedians, and again, this is going off on a tangent. It's got nothing to do with the tier list. Tommy Cooper. I loved Tommy Cooper's sense of humour. Did you ever hear what he used to do when he was sort of like in a London taxi cab?
No, go on. I might have done.
You might have done. I might say it, and then you go, "Oh yeah, I remember that." He'd get in a London taxi cab. He'd go to wherever he needed to go, and as he was getting out and he was paying his fare, he'd reach in and he's sort of like into his pocket. He'd take something out. He'd put it in the breast pocket of the London London taxi cab driver, and say, "Have a drink on me," and it was a tea bag.
Yes, I have heard it. My parents back in the 70s saw him at, what was the Circus Tavern?
Oh, yeah.
And before he'd even got onto the stage, because he started off with pretending he was locked in his dressing room and couldn't get out, before he'd even walked on the stage, my parents were saying, everybody had tears streaming down their face. It was so funny. Comic genius. But Brilliant. My favourite comic genius of all time, Eric Morecambe. Can't get past how brilliant that man was.
Yeah. Arsenal!
And this is all to avoid talking about Spurs, isn't it?
Well, no, actually, no, because it leads nicely, because obviously we've just been talking about comedy and we come on to Spurs. Oh, hang on. You're there. Okay, so yeah. So talking of comedy, Spurs.
Yeah, black comedy at the moment, because they're doing rather well, aren't they?
It's going to go wrong at some point, hopefully.
Oh, I do hope so.
So looking at their incomings now, again, I don't lie. I'm not a sort of like an expert on, European football in the main. Their incomings have been Pierluigi Golini on loan from Atalanta, a permanent signing from Atalanta being Christian Romero, Brian Heel from Sevilla, Emerson Royale on deadline day from Barcelona, Pape Matar Sarr from Metz has come in, although he's been loaned back to Metz, so he won't be doing anything, certainly not this side of the new year at the very least. Going out the door, we've got Danny Rose, we've got Paulo Gazzaniga, going down the list, a load of basically players I don't know, and then we come to Juan Foyth, Eric Lamela, Toby Alderweireld, Troy Parrott, I've heard of him, but he was a player on the periphery, Joe Hart, Musa Sissoko, Serge Aurier, who had his contract terminated by mutual consent, and Cameron Carter-Vickers, who's gone on loan to Celtic. So, Nuno Espirito Santo rocking up at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with Harry Kane still in the building. Your thoughts?
Well, because they've kept on to who I would arguably say is the best striker in the world, I'm going to give him a very good.
Ooh.
It hurts. It hurts immensely, but holding on to Kane was massive.
By hook or by crook, they did it.
And I have huge respect for Levy, actually, because he just wouldn't negotiate. He said, you want him, that's what it is. And he's on contract, so he's going to have to suck this up. And I thought, at last, somebody has stood there and gone, no, because a lot of these really good footballers don't hear the word no very often.
No, they don't.
I hate to say it, but I think the same goes for our deck sometimes. not many people are actually prepared to turn around and go, no, you're not having that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
and,
I've got a little thought about Declan Rice, but I'm not going to articulate it here. I'll tell you off of once I've ended the broadcast. However, I was discussing this with my wife. I've got a theory about Declan Rice, but I'll talk to you about it later because I might sort of hold that in reserve, and I might do a recording on my thoughts on Declan Rice and the situation. But I'll keep that there. I'll leave you in suspense, guys.
They held on to Kane. It's got to be very good if you hold on to the world's best striker, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't see how.
Well, you'd say he's one of the world's best striker. I suppose it's an argument between him and Lewandowski, which one you favour, or maybe even Haaland. Is he sort of like someone that's coming up on the reels? But you'd say that he's in the conversation 100%. I mean, he was top Premier League. Oh no shadow of a doubt there. That's unarguable. So, okay, we move on. Coming back into the Premier League at the first time of asking, we've got Watford. Now, incomings of note. Do you remember Ashley Fletcher, formerly of this parish?
I do, yes.
Yes!
We buy him for $1 million and sell him for $8 million. We made a huge profit on him.
I can't remember. Did we actually make money on a player for a change? My goodness.
We made a huge profit on Ashley Fletcher, yeah.
But he did bugger all in a claret and blue shirt. How did that happen?
Well, maybe that's the knack by players.
Incredible.
Incredible.
Ashley Fletcher's come in from Middlesbrough on a free. We've got Danny Rose also on a free from Spurs. We go down the list. We've got Joshua King, who obviously had his loan or whatever it was. It was a bit of a strange one, that one, because his contract was running out at Bournemouth. They've shipped him off to Everton. They haven't kept him, and he's out the door at Goodison. And he's walked through the door at Vicarage Road. Going down the list, Moussa Sissoko's the only other name that I can say, in all honesty, I've heard of, who's gone there from Tottenham. The rest of the players, I've never heard of you, Matty Pollock from Grimsby. I'm real sorry. I've never heard of you, Quado Boa from Rochdale. I just haven't got a clue who you are. And I apologise, you might be a really nice guy and you might do an awful lot of work for charity, but I simply don't know who you are. And you don't know who I am. So that's fine. We're even. Looking at the outgoings, Carlos Sanchez. Remember him? Yeah, they've released him. I don't know. I mean, honestly, he must have been one of their better players, surely. But the rest of them, looking down the list, I'm like, who the hell are you? I haven't got a clue. And then I get to a name that I recognise. Little bit of an oxymoron on this one. His name's Isaac Success, but he wasn't a success, so that's why he's left Watford. Will Hughes has gone to Crystal Palace. Troy Deeney's gone to Birmingham City. Andre Gray to QPR on loan. Daniel Chalabar's gone to Fulham, and former West Ham player Domingos Quina has gone on loan to Fulham. Is it going to be enough, Steve, to keep the Hornets in the Premier League, or are they coming back from whence they came?
I tell you what, they've actually got some players there who are Premier League proven, who will improve their side.
Okay.
I think they've got a much, much better chance than Norwich. And I think they've improved their side, so I'm going to say it's very good. It's all about levels, isn't it?
Yep.
From where they are, they've done well. Coming back into the Premier League, they're not the biggest draw in the world, are they, Watford?
No.
But they've got players who can do a job, and I think will grind out results for them. So, yeah, very good for Watford.
Okay. We'll put them in the very good category. Then we move on. We've got West Ham United, our very own. Now, I don't know about you. I was getting a little bit concerned at one point or another. I wouldn't say I was panicking, but as the days rumbled on, my level of apprehension was just growing ever so slightly. Now, in the previous teams that we've obviously covered, I've just brushed over all of the players because otherwise this video would have taken an awful lot longer. But in the case of our own team, I don't think it's unreasonable, seeing that we're a West Ham fan channel, to actually mention every single name. So, incomings was Thierry Nevers from Reading, Pierre-Emerick Alimbi from Chelsea, Armstrong Oko-Flex from Celtic on a free, Alphonse Areola from Paris Saint-Germain on loan. He was at Fulham on loan last season. Kurt Zuma from Chelsea, Nikola Vlasic from CSKA Moscow, and Alex Kral from Spartak Moscow on loan. Against the outgoings, which are Oladapo Afolayan to Bolton, Fabian Balbuena, Sean Odarkwa, Olatunji Akinola, and Samuel Kaja, along with Alfie Lewis and Joshua Okocha, all of whom were released. Joseph Anang has gone on loan to Stevenage. Felipe Anderson is out the door and going to Lazio in Serie A. Nathan Trott has gone on loan, and I apologise, guys, this is how it's pronounced. It's spelt in English Nancy, but it's pronounced Nancy. I can't do anything about it, and I know there's going to be jokes about Adam Johnson and Gylfi Sigurdsson, and I can't help you sniggering at the back, children. We then have got Frederick Alves on loan at Sunderland, Mipo Odebeko on loan at Huddersfield Town, and Connor Coventry on loan at Peterborough. So, all in all, and coupled with the fact that in a post-COVID Premier League and given his performances in the Euros, that we've actually managed to keep for another season, fingers crossed, Declan Rice. Where does this sit on the tier list for West Ham United?
Well, everybody's going to moan we didn't get a striker.
Uh-huh.
But we don't get all of our goals from a striker.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's an excellent transfer window because the first team now has a bit of depth, and it's significantly improved. And there is succession planning, Crowell for Rice, keeper for Fabianski. You know, there is some succession planning. And the one reason I don't think Moyes is prepared to sign a striker or any striker just to fill a role is West Ham's record of signing strikers is second to none in terms of it just being awful. We have bought so many strikers that haven't worked out. We've even paid 40 million for one that couldn't cut it. Moyes won't get the striker.
Who do you mean, I wonder?
Well, I dread to think, but Moyes won't sign a striker till it is a perfect fit and he can break that trend.
Yeah. And
I'm quite happy with what we've got. Is it ideal? No. But then we've talked about Man U. They need to strengthen in an area. And quite a few teams do. I don't know what our net spend was, but I think it was well over 60 million. And after post-COVID, that's not bad.
No.
So, and we've brought in real quality there. So, yeah, it's excellent for us. I was delighted with it in the end.
Boom.
And I think, and every player Moyes brings in, you can be certain he will improve. I think he's brought Alex Crowell for potential. Alex Crowell's got the potential to be really good, but he just needs the rough edges polishing off.
Yeah.
Like Ben Rama. No, when I've got you where I want you to, then you'll start as a first team player.
Yeah. And I know there'll be people that will say that they saw Alex Crowell play at the Euros and they weren't overly impressed. But then I could flip that on its head and go, well, we have signed players on the back of tournaments, be it European Championships, World Cups, African Cups of Nations, CONCACAF Gold Cups, whatever, and say that we've signed them because of what they did at tournament XYZ, and they've walked through the door and they've stunk the place out. Now, the reverse can happen, surely, where a player maybe doesn't quite hit the levels that you're possibly thinking they should, and you sign them and they actually are better than what you think. I mean, it's a little bit unfair to judge a player, I think, in an international tournament, you know,
Different
with the different situation, different set of circumstances. Let's see.
And the other thing is, I think as a point of pride, Souček and Soufal will not want him to fail there.
Oh, massively. I mean, he's got, you know, you think about it, and I think when I had Gonzo on the other day on one of the transfer streams that we did, you know, he turned around and said it, that, you know, he's not got to settle or anything like that, because he's got two of his mates there. You know, if Alex Crowell has got a partner, a wife, a girlfriend, whatever, presumably Soucek and Tufal have got their other halves as well, so they can buddy up, and you know, so it's not like, you know, he's walking through the door and he's sort of like, there's no one else there that speaks the same language as him. There's no one else there that has got the same cultural experience as him. You know, there's the three of them there, and they're all sort of like, they can all help one another along.
And let's face it, Soucek and Tufel look very, very happy. I know we get this nonsense in the media, but we've seen them play twice this year, and okay, they weren't at their best against Palace, but there was no lack of effort, no lack of trying, no lack of wanting the side to win. So yeah, because they've now given us a really, really good legacy from the Czech Republic, they'll want him to add to that to build their worth, if you see what I mean. And I think he will. I think it's going to take time. He's not the finished article. And I suspect Deck will go in the summer, and the whole idea will be to have Krell ready to just take over from Deck seamlessly. Okay, that's my opinion.
Fair enough.
It was an excellent transfer window. I was really happy with it.
Okay, no worries. We come to the last of the teams, which is Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, obviously, there's been a managerial change there. So when that happens, there tends to be a little bit of shuffling around by and large. Now, you look down the list, the only player that, players that jumped off the page at me were Rayan Aït-Nouri, who was there on loan last season. He's gone there permanently now. Hwang Hee-chan, who's gone there on loan from RB Leipzig, who was a player that was tentatively linked with us in the January transfer window, and maybe a little bit in the summer transfer window. Harvey Griffith, who's a player I've heard about at Manchester City. Francisco Trincao has gone there on loan from Barcelona. The rest of them, I'll be honest, I'm not too sure who Louis Molden on free from Manchester City is, or Yerson Mosquera from Atletico Nacional. I've no idea who they are. Looking at the outgoings, players that I'm looking at that I recognise the names: Ruben Vinagre, Rui Patricio, Owen Otasoe, and that's pretty much it as far as the outgoings are concerned that I know about. I'm very sorry to tell you, Joe Young, who went on loan to Runcorn, that I've never heard of you.
No, what, you haven't heard of Joe Young? I find that
real sorry,
remarkable, really.
Real sorry, but I'm sure he'll light it up at Runcorn. But
I'm sure.
Tell me your thoughts.
Poor. I don't think their side's any better. I don't see. I think Wolves will do well to get a top 10 finish this year. There was so much promise, but it seems to have disappeared. They've held on Traore, which I think was important, actually. And I'd love Traore at West Ham. He's a monster, isn't he?
Does holding on to Traore, is that a justification to maybe say to you that maybe it's better than poor because they've kept him, or do you still think that, you know, it's still just not good enough?
Yeah, I just don't think it's good enough for their ambitions. I mean, this is the club who came 7th and everybody was tipping for top 4 with the right investment, and they're nowhere near that at the moment.
No.
I mean, if we play Wolves, we play our best like we did against Leicester, and Wolves play their best, we hammer them.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, but, you know, that's my opinion on the transfers.
Absolutely, and that's all that matters.
But the most enjoyable transfer window for me was watching Arsenal make a complete pig's ear of it. It was an absolute delight. I told you, I think we did a stream all before the season started, and you asked me what was my perfect season, and I said, win the Europa League, top 8, and Arsenal and Spurs relegated. Well, winning the Europa League and top 8 are still on, and there's a chance Arsenal, if they don't sort themselves out, could struggle this season.
Mind you, in fairness, it's only 3 games gone. There's another 35 in the Premier League, so an awful lot of things can happen. But it's not a great start, it has to be said. Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
But, Anyway,
Steve, I thank you very much indeed for your time. I'm just going to go full screen just to show the people at home that are still watching. We've got in the excellent category, we have got Leicester City, Manchester United, and our very own beloved West Ham United. We've then got in the very good category, Brentford, Chelsea, Everton, Tottenham Hotspur, and Watford. Bang average, we've got Aston Villa, Brighton and Hove Albion, Burnley, Crystal Palace, Leeds United, Manchester City and Norwich City, followed by, in the poor section, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle United, Southampton and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Steve, I thank you very much indeed for your attendance.
Thank you very much for having me on, Gatesy, and thank you to everybody who's watched this stream and listen to me blather on for an hour and a half with very little knowledge. We do appreciate it, and if you found any entertainment, please like the video because it does help the channel out. And
I'll tell you what, hang on, go on then, hang on.
Oh yeah, this will mess my internet stream up, always does.
Go on, like the stream, subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified of any new content that is uploaded to the channel, as Steve has just suggested. And before we wrap it up, I will just, again, Young Isla needs our help. If you can put this onto your social media platforms with an explanation as to the appeal that she needs the funds to save her life. She's a 6-year-old girl and she can't get the treatment in this country, so they've got to go over all the family and pay for all the bills of the treatment, the accommodation, the flights, if you can do one thing, then just put it onto your social media platform, copy paste it. It's in the description below on YouTube and Facebook, and just a little explanation would go an awful long way. If you can further to that, see your way clear to put any money into the Just Giving link that's there. Don't let me stop you. Thank you very much indeed for listening. Steve, any last things that you want to say before we hit end broadcast?
No, just thanks for having me on, Gatesy. I really enjoy it. We always have a good laugh. One of these days we'll keep on the topic of football, but clearly that wasn't today.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. And everybody who's watched this, take care. Have a good week.
Only one thing I'm going to say, boys, and that is, come on, you irons.
Come on, you irons.
Stay safe, guys.